Hello, hello, hello! How is everybody doing today? It is Detroit Allycat, and I am so excited to be back to tell you our story. Today is Spooky Saturday, and we're going to talk about something I've always wanted to talk about. And without further ado, let's get spooky. So today we will be talking about Aokigahara. I hope I said that right. I have practiced many times. My Japanese is not very good, but Aokigahara is actually what is commonly now known as the suicide forest. Last couple years ago, there was a famous horror movie. It had the woman that was in Game of Thrones in it, and everyone was able to find out about the suicide forest. I love the whole idea of it. I know that sounds kind of morbid or bizarre, but I wanted to look into the history, what the deal is about this forest, why there's so many different aspects that are so very interesting. So before we begin, I would like to put a disclaimer that we are going to talk about suicide today. And for some of you, that is a very sensitive subject. It's hard for people to hear about it. It can be, as they say, triggering. And if that is going to bother you, I'm gonna just tell you maybe you shouldn't watch this one. So now is your opportunity to take off, or you get to stay with me for the long haul. Alright, so let's talk about the suicide forest. I'm gonna call it that just because it's easier to say, and I don't know how much longer I can say the Aokigahara correctly. I almost got it wrong that time. So Aokigahara, or the suicide forest, is actually located 20 minutes away from Tokyo. It is the surrounding forest from Mt Fuji. Mt Fuji is a very beautiful volcano in Japan, and because Mt Fuji has erupted multiple times, the volcanic ash or the volcano lava rock thing, it makes the soil in the surrounding area it makes it very prosperous for the vegetation to grow around the surrounding area. So the suicide forest is actually, the other name for it is called the Sea of Trees, and it is so thickly packed with trees that there is barely any sunshine that gets through. I mean, it's not completely dark, but the rain can't even get through and get down into there because it's so thickly packed. They say that there is no animals that actually go into the forest, so it's very rare to see any wildlife at all. There is also a lot of, I believe, iron deposits in the ground. So something that's incredibly spooky is the compasses that you use once you're in the forest. It does not work. So they say, whatever you do, do not go off the path. Now let's talk about why the whole suicide forest is spooky and how it led to have this history. So the Japanese culture have a very different view on suicide, and it began from very long ago. It actually started with the samurai. So the ancient samurai, long ago, that was like a military force made for the emperor themselves. They had a view on what to do when you were caught by the enemy, and instead of letting the enemy actually capture you, it was more honorable to commit suicide, actually to disembowel yourself, which is crazy, but that's what they did, so that the enemy couldn't torture them to find out information about the emperor or keep them and subject them to things that would be not honorable. So that's sort of how it began in Japan, looking at suicide in not quite the same view as us Americans have, if you're from the America and you're watching this. Another thing is that this is kind of like a grim past to it. In Japanese history, there was a lot of time of famine, and it was said that when you had an elderly person in your family and you couldn't like afford to feed them, they would take the elderly and they would take them to the suicide forest and they would leave them there, and that's where they would die because they would starve. I really had a lot of problems with learning about that because all I could think about is like these cute little grandmas and grandpas walking around, and I love our elderly, and that just made me really sad. I think it made me the saddest to hear about that than anything else, but let's keep going. So that is basically the history of suicide, or a portion of it, in Japan. So there are a few top places in the entire world that are the most popular place to commit suicide. The first place is the Golden Gate Bridge, which I did not know that, but I guess that is the most popular place to jump off of and kill yourself. And I gotta tell you, it doesn't seem like a very calm, soothing type of death, but people do it, maybe because they think it's the quickest and the most instant way to go. And the second most popular place to kill yourself is the suicide forest. And it is so popular to go there and kill yourself that the Japanese government has actually stopped reporting how many people they find in the suicide forest themselves. So they don't want people to know how many people are in there doing that, because they don't want the forest or the surrounding area to have the stigma of this is what it is. It's actually a huge tourist attraction because there's so many caves and caverns in the area, and it's such a beautiful area, and they want people to know about the positive side of the forest, which the forest is so very, very unique. I am definitely going to upload some pictures for you to look at it, and it's like no other forest I've ever seen before. And what's really unique about it is all of the footage that I've seen of the forest, it's completely silent inside the forest. They say that it is completely silent, which it really gives it an eerie effect. I've watched a bunch of YouTubers. I don't know if they're trying to be dramatic, but they get in there and you can tell that they're kind of like creeped out, or like they feel really weird about, the fact that they can't hear anything. Because, if you're in a forest, you hear birds chirping, you see deers running, but in this forest, there is nothing. So what is really interesting about the suicide forest is that they say that there's supposed to be these dark spirits that are attracted to the forest. In Japanese culture, they call them the yuri. And what the yuri is they're attracted to the sadness that is inside of you. So the story is that when you go on the path, you can look around the forest, or if you lead off the path, the yuri will call you to them. And if the yuri gets you, they will actually take your spirit and leave it inside the forest forever. And what's really interesting is if they find you in the forest, because they have like a team of people that go through the forest that try to find people that have actually committed suicide. If they find you in the forest, there's a building right before you go in the forest where they keep dead bodies of the people that committed suicide, and they watch them for 24 hours so the yuri cannot claim them. I don't know how much of that is actual folklore. It was in the movie The Forest, but I did read that there was actually Buddhist monks that do this, and I think that's crazy. I think it's kind of awesome, actually, that they would have that much respect for their dead, that they would sit there and sit with them 24 hours. I would feel a little bit like overwhelmed with terror, because dead bodies usually make noises, like the air leaves their bodies, and sometimes they can even make noises from their mouth sounding like they're grunting. It's just the natural way of your body to decompose, and I just don't know if I could do that all night long by myself right by the suicide forest. So But anyway, so another interesting fact about the suicide forest is it's so popular to commit suicide in the suicide forest. I don't know if it was just the forest that caused this to happen, but in 1993 there was a book that was made in Japan by a Japanese author, and the name of the book is called The Complete Manual of Suicide. And this book is very shocking. It's been banned in many countries, and basically it tells you all the different ways that you could commit suicide, and it shows you which ones are the most painful, which one are the quickest, which one will be the easiest on your family, how they'll find you, and it'll be easy, because sometimes when you commit suicide it can be really traumatic and hard for the family. There could be a lot of cleanup. They talk about how to prepare to commit suicide, what to do before you do it, how to tie up your loose ends, and this book is actually found in the forest itself many times. So when you go to the forest, there's this gigantic parking lot. You can park, and it's actually legal to camp inside of the forest. And they say that there are a lot of cars that you will see that are there for many, many days. And sometimes some of these cars are just abandoned. So when they see that a car is abandoned, it's pretty much assumed that somebody went into the forest and committed suicide. Once you enter the forest itself, there is a path, and they're very serious about staying on the path, because once you go off the path, you might not want to commit suicide, but because your compass doesn't work and it's such a dense forest, it's so very easy to get lost. Now, the people that go there with the intentions to commit suicide, they go there and they bring camping gear, and they do this because they want to camp in the forest and actually reflect on their life and think about if they actually want to go through with it. And they go off the path. So what they do is they take this ribbon and they attach it to a tree, and they'll go off the path and they'll follow the ribbon all the way to the end. And that way, if they change their mind, they can follow the ribbon all the way back. Also, campers use this ribbon too, just so that they don't get lost. So it does have double uses. It is kind of crazy when I look at the pictures of the forest, and there's all these different ribbons going in all these different directions. You don't know what you're gonna find at the end of the ribbons. And one of the people that actually takes care of the forest says that usually when they find a ribbon and they go to the ribbon, there's almost always something at the end of the ribbon, being a dead body or a camping area, or just personal effects, suicide letters. It's just crazy. So they do have a special team that are prepared to go inside the forest, collect the bodies, and actually bring the bodies back to the place that I told you about. And also, something that's really unnerving about the forest is when you arrive to the forest, they have all these signs, and the signs are please know that you are loved, and think of your family, and how much you will be missed if you commit this act. And I've never been to a forest that had signs like that, but this forest has signs like that. It is a very beautiful forest, but like I said, it's very unnerving. And the Japanese government is working really hard to turn around the whole stigma of the forest, and I hope that they can do that. But I feel that the forest is already known as a very spiritual place that is where you should go if you do want to commit suicide, because a lot of the Japanese culture believe that if you are not succeeding in life and that you're not providing for your family, or you're not where you're supposed to be, that you are a burden on your family and you have no honor, and so it is best to just end your life, which is really incredibly sad. It's actually said that there is a monk that wanders in the forest looking for people who are trying to kill themselves and tries to talk them out of it and lead them out of the forest. And what's really interesting about this is the story goes that the monk actually is a spirit, a good spirit, no longer alive. And there was actually a couple, probably I think 2 or 3 years ago, that got lost in the forest, and they said that a monk helped them get out. And when they went back to the city, they told everybody about the monk, and they're like, oh yeah, there's a monk that's in the forest and he's not alive. So I thought that was a really cool thing, because I've heard about the Yuri before. There's a lot of like horror movies and there's a lot of ancient tales about the Yuri. But the fact is that there's both bad and evil spirits in the forest, almost like having battle against each other. It kind of like, it shows you hope to me, because that's just life. Life is like bad and good fighting each other all the time. So that's the story of the forest. I do want to go through a couple things really quick. I know that it was kind of a fun thing to talk about, a haunted forest, but for some of you, suicide is a very real thing and something that people think about all the time. And I'm going to tell you something very personal. I go through very hard periods in my life because I'm a performer. I'm just a very eccentric person. I'm a very dramatic person. And so I have very high highs, and then I have very low lows. And I know that when I hit those lows, which the weirdest thing is I always hit those lows around Christmas time, that I have been there and I have felt things like, thinking about doing things that we don't like to talk about. And I just want to mention, because we are talking about the suicide forest, if you feel this way, the first thing that you should do is reach out to somebody and talk to them. If you feel uncomfortable talking to your friends or somebody that loves you, there are hotlines, and you remain completely anonymous. No one's going to find out that you're the one who called. There were people that actually stay up all night that would be happy to talk to you about it. I'm going to leave the suicide hotline number on there, and if perchance somebody from another country actually tunes in and watches this, there are these hotlines all over the world. So all you have to do is Google or whatever you have, and don't feel bad about it, because I know a lot of people don't like to admit it, but we all have these feelings once or twice in our life, or maybe even more. The important part is to talk about it and to get help, because that's what life is. We're all helping each other. And and the other thing I wanted to talk about is the last video that I made. I don't know what it is about my equipment or YouTube, but it uploaded my intro and it didn't upload my music. So it's really bizarre for the first 30 seconds, and it totally stressed me out. So I am going to be getting an intro that is going to be the same all the time. I feel like that's going to take a lot of load off of my concern about this YouTube channel. So if you did see my last video, I apologize. I think that my equipment is haunted. Every time I do something, it's like these little evil gnomes or fairies are like doing stuff to my equipment. I don't know if you have the same experience, but that's just my life. I try to look at the humor in it sometimes. And also, I was thinking about maybe talking about my life and like what I do, because I think I do have a very different life than most people are, and my normal job that I run. If that's something you might be interested in hearing about, let me know. And the other thing is that I have had a lot of people comment about my hedgehog pictures or my little hedgehog stuff. I do have a hedgehog. I love him very much. His name is Patton, and I was thinking about doing like a hedgehog care video, or possibly videotaping him taking a bath. If you are interested in watching this, please let me know in the comments. Okay guys, I'm so glad you guys got to watch this video. I hope that everything goes great with my editing, but I'm sure it's gonna have like 30 different things that happen, but who cares? We'll get through it. And as always, oh, if you are watching this video, please think about subscribing, think about leaving a comment, liking the video. I would really love it. It helps me feel like I'm actually moving forward and doing something positive. And I guess that's it, guys. So as always, stay spooky and stay safe.